Hi, everybody. We're broadcasting here from Best Whole New World, and you have Diane, Annie, Mathias in Palm Springs?
Palm Desert,
Palm Desert.
California.
Palm Desert. And we are going to be, and myself, Jacqueline Best, and here in Canada, we're going to be talking today in this beautiful, lovely new series that has been inspired by the creativity and the inspiration that Annie is always giving in everything she does. She's just awesome. And so today it's called The Creative Breath, and we're going to start with why is creativity so vital to our lives? And this is going to just be a great conversation.
This is wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. All of my life, I've been, for whatever the reason, people say, oh, you got in line twice for creativeness, and that hasn't always been a joy for me, because sometimes I get into places where it's very in the box, linear, which is not a bad thing, but I find myself getting like, oh, but we could do this or we could do this. And now in this day and age, it's really coming to a place where creativity is not just for people who do art or write poetry or play the guitar or whatever. Creativity is being recognized as something really vital for everyone. And so that's why the title, The Creative Breath, just kind of came out when Jackie and I were talking about this, because like breathing, we have to breathe or we won't live. And creativity is an essential part of our lives. And I just wanted to start off with reading from Wikipedia what they talked about creativity as. And I thought this was phenomenal. Creativity is a phenomenon whereby something new and somehow valuable is formed. The created item may be intangible, such as an idea, a scientific theory, a musical composition, or even a joke, or a physical object, such as an invention, a literary work, or a painting. Scholarly interest in creativity involves many definitions and concepts pertaining to a number of disciplines: engineering, psychology, cognitive science, education, philosophy, technology, theology, sociology, linguistics, business studies, songwriting, and economics. And there's a lot of different areas in this: creativity and mental health, education and training, national economic benefit, application of creative resources to improve the effectiveness of teaching and learning. So it is really neat to be in an age now where creativity is being seen not as just something that, oh, those people over there are creative and they're just kind of these starving artists. No, creativity is being seen as an important element in all of our lives. And I absolutely love that, because I see how important it is. And I would just like to start by saying that this program is not just for those who paint or sing or whatever. This is for all of us, because we are all creatives and we all have creativity. Okay, that's my little spiel.
I thought the Wikipedia, I was like, did they miss anything? It was so all-encompassing. And from my perspective, I'll just give a little background, is art was that one mark in school that I only got the average on in grade 6, okay? And everything else was above average, but art was average. So that was the decision right there that I was not creative. Mm-hmm. And that carried with me through up until really just about 6 months ago. And I was having a conversation with a friend, Natalie Bedard. And she's very creative also. And I had this aha that I create every day in my life, yes. Right? I set intentions, I let go, I decide what I want. I've done it with feng shui and things but I realized I am a creative being. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am a creative being, and just because I'm not creating pottery or painting, I am a creative being. So that was my aha, and now I want to take it to the next level and be more like you.
I love that. There's an old paradigm, an old false belief that, and I think people my age or, of all ages have been taught that creativity has to do with art. And then, I have a friend who, we there's a group of us that get together and we do singing together. And he said, when I was a small child, I was told that I was tone deaf and I should never sing. So he had great difficulty entering into singing. Mm-hmm. And the reality is we have a Western idea of what singing is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And the world doesn't even engage in that belief at all anyhow. So, you know, a lot of these beliefs are, we've taken them on as truth, but they're not really true.
Yeah.
Just like, you know.
Oh yeah, there's actually in where I am in Charlottetown, in Prince Edward Island, they have been studying voice. And scientifically, they've just coming up with a program called SingFest because they realize if you just sing, right? I mean, we know this for those of you that sing, you feel good, whether it's singing in the shower or whatever, but you do feel like you open up. And that's one of the reasons why so many places in that, you know, worship or circles, we do that type of thing. But now the science,
I love it,
is telling us what we already know inside to say, you know what, there's all these benefits in your brain working better with your body, that your heart's opening, that your spirit turns up, your endorphins, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. And that's part of the reason why creativity is so vital for us, because as human beings, it's connected to so many different things. If I'm working on a spreadsheet, which, trust me, I'm probably not going to be working on a spreadsheet. But if I'm working on a spreadsheet and all of a sudden, I'm in this place of looking at all this and I start to have ideas. That's the creative juices going. And, it's the same as if I'm working on creating one of my one-of-a-kind books. And I've kind of devised a system now where I'll take a weekend and I won't plan any scheduled windows and I'll just kind of when I'm hungry and sleep when I'm tired, but I'll just allow myself that space to just run free in that creative mode. And scientists have studied this, and of course it's a form of altered state, which is really, really good for our brains. It's really good for our bodies. It's like, daydreaming, or it's, like going into a deep meditation and all of these things. But it's so interesting how you're right, when science says it's okay, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, maybe I could try that. Yeah. But it is like breath. None of us would be alive if we weren't breathing.
Exactly. And the idea that in that breath, like we're breathing in almost this inspiration, because like every great creation, whether it is something an application that was designed now in technology, or it was Shakespeare's work of art, or Michael, there was an inspiration or an invention. Like, he may have been working on it, but there was this aha usually and so many of them will say, it came to me in my dreams, right? Yeah. Like I woke up with it and then I had the answer. So that idea that you're breathing it in and actually exhaling all the stuff that doesn't fit in your vision.
Mm-hmm. And I love that we're having this conversation about changing those old paradigms. Just growing up, creative or art was only left for when you got done with all your other chores. And I found that as an adult, it was only after working hard or doing whatever you had to do that there was time to play music or enjoy doing these creative type of things. And, that's an old paradigm, which I'm glad is starting to change and starting to leave this planet. You were talking about the Songfest in your area, doing something like that. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful for building community. That's so powerful for people coming together, having one voice, or collectively a lot of different voices. But that is so important for us as human beings living together in a global community, or in a smaller community too.
Have you ever seen the choir stuff?
No.
Oh, you want to Google that if anybody hasn't seen that. There's choir, and they will, I'm not even sure how it works exactly, but there'll be a place and there'll be a piece of music. And like a flash mob, instead of dancing, these are people coming together to sing 500 at a time. And they're singing in a shopping mall, and it's just like, wow, that there's harmony, and it's just, wow. You could only do that when you have this level, I believe, of trust, the creative process with no judgment.
Yes. I have seen, I told my friends I would love to be a part of a flash mob, or I'd love to develop that. I just think that would be so fun. And just, you just draw people in and people are just like, you can feel it. You can feel it in your bones. So that's a powerful
Did
thing.
one. I did one. My daughters and I, we did one, a flash mob. It was and it was so cool. It was to Michael Jackson's Black or White.
Oh, wow.
And we were at a strawberry festival in part of Ontario, and everyone's milling around, and all of a sudden they put the song on, and we all come out of the crowd, and we're like,
So neat. And just that laughter and that joy. So
yes.
us. I mean, there's so many, these are all parts, and we don't do it because of that, but that's the spontaneous response. And it's just wonderful.
So let me ask you this. When did you first, for you, notice that you were creative, right? Like, when was the creativity began with you? Because it's carried forward your whole life, right?
Right. Well, there's times that I tried to hide it, times that I tried to be like everybody else. I wasn't very good at that, but I tried small space. When I was a child, I noticed that I was different. One of the things that I'd like to talk about in the series is synesthesia, which is where your brain is wired differently. And I don't know how many forms of synesthesia. It's not a disorder, it's just how your brain is wired. And many artists have synesthesia. Rhapsody in Blue was created because the notes elicit different colors of blue from the composer. And for me, one of my forms of synesthesia is when I was little, I would see these pictures, these calendars. They'd always have calendars of kittens. And I'd reach out and pet them because I could feel the soft fur on the picture. In my brain, at least my brain was telling my fingers that it was soft, or I could taste things that I saw a picture of. And I thought everybody was like that. Well, pretty soon I figured out they weren't, and that I was somehow weird or strange or whatever. And it wasn't until I had gone back to school at age 40 and I was in a biopsych class for my master's degree that I came across this term. I cried for 3 days, discovering that this was not anything that made me weird. It was just how I was wired. So I think that all of us come from different places, but I was very aware early on that I was different. And sometimes teachers make you feel really uncomfortable with that because they'd rather have you just fit in and go along and not rock the boat. Rocking the boat in jobs, having this idea, and then it's not until it's the boss's idea that it can be accepted and it works. And then, fine. But, there's so many ways that I think that all of us have experienced in one way or another, our creativity coming forth, and we will squash it down, or we will try to fit in, or we will try to not rock the boat, or we'll be afraid to rock the boat, or we'll hide our poetry under our mattress, which is one thing that I used to do, because we do want to fit in, or we feel like we're supposed to fit in. And it's not until we break out that we're just able to be in a space of freedom.
So when you were suppressing creativity, was there a ramification?
I mean, tell me that again.
Was there a ramification? Like when you're suppressing your creativity, were you experiencing it emotionally impacting you by expressing it through the breath?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, when I would suppress and try to hide my creativity, I felt like I was suffocating. I really did, physically. I would feel like I was suffocating. My life was just also, it feels really constipated, like my whole being. I didn't have the freedom just to breathe, or that using that metaphor, the air around me was really constrictive, and it wasn't until I could find, and it's not like I go to a job and I have to be all open and all this, but to be able to have those creative outlets in my life is really, really important. I think we all need that, and it may be that your job is one that you're not. You don't feel a great sense of freedom there, but then to know that there are places in your life where you can be moving in a creative flow. And it's
So I
that
think
flow too.
it's really important that people get you felt suffocated, or limited,
Mm-hmm.
because you could probably have no idea why but many health issues to the fact that you're helping your truth.
Yes, I believe that's true, because our bodies, I also have come to know that our bodies are so wise, and they will help us as we move through this journey of life to really come to that which is true. And the fact that I was feeling so suffocated, or would feel all clammy or whatever, that was my body just in a bodily way saying, you're not living your authentic self.
So did you have a moment where you snapped out?
I think I always knew that the creative energy was there, and that was how I was supposed to walk. Mm-hmm. For me, it's been more of a gathering of courage in my life. It's been a walk of courage, learning how to be courageous with who I am. That's probably been my biggest thing. Being creative is not hard at all for me, but having the courage to live my authentic life, that's been a lifelong journey. And that's why I have such a passion for teaching about creativity and authenticity, because I hope that maybe it will be easier for others than it was for me.
Right. So the reason creativity is so vital is it's essential to our well-being. Because authentically we're a creative being. Whether we're a creative lawyer, or a painter, right? Or a sculptor. Yes. There's some element of expression coming to us, and when we are stopping that expression,
yes,
we are having issues, and hence it's creativity so vital.
Yes, because it is a life force. Creativity is a life force of expression, and living our authentic life that's when we're the happiest. That's when we're the freest. That's when our body is alive. That's when we dance and can enter into that dance, or that's when we can sing and enter into the joy of the song rather than a performance. I think that, there's kind of another misbelief is that if you stand up and do a performance, then you're being creative. That's a performance. The creativity is when it's authentically coming from you. Now, you can have all those wonderful skills. You can be wonderfully trained, but it's when you enter in and be the song rather than playing the song, or when you enter in, if you're in a play and you enter into being the character, that's the authenticity.
Yeah, and some actors will say that's why they prefer live theater.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's the moment to feel more. There's nothing between except the audience, right? And their breath.
I have found in spirituality too that the creative voice is really important. If you look at all the holy ones, all the writings, they're in metaphor, because there just isn't enough words to fill all of those spaces. So when we move into metaphor, when we move into a creative voice, a creative expression of what is, it holds all of these different parts. Like if you talk about a tree as a metaphor, the tree has deep roots, the tree has leaves, the tree has birds that come and live in it, the tree has insects, the tree provides shade, the tree provides fruit, on and on and on. So instead of all of those words and trying to get in and explain ad nauseum each little thing, you have this wonderful creative expression. And in storytelling too, that's where the creativity is so powerful, because people hear it according to their own backgrounds, but in the stories is this fullness and this richness that we can just be absorbed in. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. My kids started early school. and they only did storytelling and did puppet shows, basically puppets. So the idea was the children's imagination, and there was unstructured play. So it was like you got an hour on the floor. The old get creative, or you have an hour of pleasure. But there was like back to the wooden toys. And the structure was, let's say, around the preparation of the meal, or when it was time to go, the teachers would start to sing the song, and everybody would follow along singing the song. And I remember many times we would be amazed that these kids, 20 of them, having a meal, and nobody said a word. Because they were so into themselves and present. They were present.
Yeah. And to understand that as a parent, to understand that and not force there to be conversation, that's a whole different way of looking at it. It really is. But you are allowing them to have that experience, because so much of creativity is experiential, and you can't always make it into something. It can be just a sense in your being. Like if you go and walk in the mountains, you can have an experiential sense of what rock is.
Yes.
And that's using your creativity and all that is around you, but it also connects you with oneness to the earth. And how would you explain that? You might sculpt something. You might you might play the didgeridoo. You might do nothing. You might just sit. And to honor each other's creativity is really important too.
Yeah, that's so much is there. Sandy. Just in that presence of that nature scene as you described it. And then each of us and expresses it differently.
Yes.
Where would we be without creativity?
I don't know. Actually, we would be lifeless. We would. I really believe that. And creativity is wonderful for, solving problems like you talked about before you go to sleep. If you have something that's unresolved, I do the same thing. That's how many of my projects have been birthed. Is I go to sleep and I have a dream about something. And, you can explain it in a lot of different ways, what that really is. And, I've heard lots of different, responses about that. But the reality is when I wake up, I have an idea and to go forth and do that. So, my mind is clear and I'm ready to just jump into that. So another thing that is really important for creativity, I think, is to understand that creativity is endless and that we're not limited. And I think that one of the reasons it's vital is because when we can enter into this place of, it's just like the universe going on and into space. When we look and we see that creativity is infinite, even though as human beings, maybe we're not able to express in the fullness because I only have the capacity of what my brain is and all of that. But of course, that's a lot more than what I am fully operating in right now. I know that. But to be able to see beyond, be able to see that I don't have to be limited. I don't have to say, oh, this is how it's done and it can only be done this way.
Yeah, and yes, since the Second World War, we started to structure and industrialize to be very, and especially in the States, and it came through in Canada like the big stores, all the same, and fast stores, everything became created the same. The houses and the news were created the same. We wanted to have everybody go to school and learn exactly the same. And really, this revolt that teenagers have is that sense that they're saying, I want to live. I want to express. And maybe they're expressing what we would consider negatively, but they're crying out to say, I need the words.
Yes.
I need to be creative.
And in any good mental health is the need to be heard. And when we are creating, when we are expressing, and we are heard, whether it be in our voice, in our writing, in our work, in our job, when we're heard, that gives us value. Yeah. And so it's really vital for us to have that sense of value. You may not always be applauded or commended, but to have that, if you're able to understand that that's your authentic voice and you can give yourself that value, that's really important.
Well, that's so true. So true. What do you say to the person who has got that? Not good enough. Right? I'm not that good enough. I'm not good enough to be a cleaner. They want to. Constricted by what they feel is supposed to be.
You know, about 10 years ago, I was working at a cancer center, and I put together a program called Healing Words. And I taught this class for the people who were living with cancer as well as for the bereaved. And everybody, I wish I had $1 for everybody who said this, but everybody would come in and they would say, I can't write. I'm not a writer. And I would say, that is not a requirement. This is not. So put aside your preset ideas of what that means. And we're just going to take out, and we all had journals, and I would have them just begin to write. One of the times I had them start off with 5 words. Write down 5 words that you like. Everybody could find 5 words. I said, write a sentence that for one for each word. And then I went around and everybody read their sentences. And I said, you know, this is starting to sound a bit like a poem. And I read back to them what they had read, and they were just amazed. But we have these ideas of what we think is acceptable and not acceptable. The only way to jump in and learn is to learn. And some of those people, I'm still in contact with them today, and they have become wonderful writers because a couple times a week at least, they were writing. And they continued on. And some would even be surprised. They said, I don't know what's going on with me, but these stories are coming up. And do you think, is this really me? Is something weird going on? And I said, it's your inner wisdom wanting to come out and have a voice. So yes, you're absolutely right. We do limit ourselves because we have an idea of what a good painter looks like or sounds like, or what a good writer is. And the reality is just jump in and do it.
Right.
But that's a big fear. So many people have that fear.
Yeah, like I just did. Because I've been told that you get it, so why didn't it told more? Yes, you were told and you believed it. Yeah, you know? And I just was not going to go there. I just put the limitations and said, I'm not creative. I can't knit. I can't do that. But I'm good at this. And I'll teach someone that. But it's fun to do new things. Yes, it is. And it's wonderful to reclaim those things that we have thrown aside, or those things we have put up in the attic and said, I can't do this. It's really wonderful to go back and reclaim those. It's empowering. I never kept it. That's kind of a metaphor. I don't even have an attic. But to go back and reclaim some of the things that you thought you couldn't do. Right. Eleanor Roosevelt said, do that which you think you cannot do. I always loved that coming from her. I love that. Yeah. Or you look at somebody like in the poetry world, E.E. Cummings. Oh my gosh, he was such, he was the one that wrote small E, Cummings as his name. Mm-hmm. During the time he came out, that was unheard of. He broke so many rules. And now he's one of our, honored poets. Right. So. Yeah, so it's becoming more acceptable. This technology, Apple and Steve Jobs, alumni speech about whatever it was, connect the dots. and notice your life, and start to realize your life itself is creative.
Yes. Yes.
So what brings you joy? Focus on.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, what brings you joy? Focus on. Because when you're whatever you're doing, you're happy. You're healthier.
You are. You're healthier. You're going to interact. You're going to interact with yourself as well as with others. You know, I mean, even like going for a walk in the woods and enjoying that and entering into the shade and trees and the little animals creatively, instead of just, oh, I'm just going to take a walk in the woods, 1 step, 2 step, but to be able to enter into that whole space. What a difference that is. What a different people we become as we allow ourselves to be alive.
I actually went walking in the rain, and I made a little bit. You know, as kids, we generally embrace. We would like look at the clouds, look at the shapes. I jumped into those. I was like, I remember was like getting presents in a house so
and to be able to play, isn't that wonderful? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
You're opening up to allow everybody to be, because it really is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's so essential to our lives, especially, I think, now because we have so much technology and we have so much other things. It's easy to be on your phone all day, which is not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing, but to move into a place of being creative, even with technology. You know, you're using your mind, you're creating new neural pathways. I can go into all the physiological things, but there's also a place of joy. There's a place of going below, getting out of the shallows and going into the depths, plumbing the depths to see what's really there. Even in psychology, you know, with learning about your shadow side or the parts of you, the creative expression is really wonderful to be able to discover these things. It's really vital to understand ourselves so we can understand each other. To have that type of self-compassion for ourselves so we can have compassion for others.
So creativity to our well-being. And the few people that are watching going, I'm not creative. Are they to start? Is there something else you would suggest they take a inventory list of themselves, or what would you suggest they do between now and next week?
Well, if you want, I think the 5 words is actually a very easy exercise. Write down 5 words and then write a sentence about each word. And then read it out loud. And then come back the next day and read it out loud. And learn to listen to yourself. And give yourself a pat on the back for doing something that maybe was a little difficult. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of people, if they have children, they feel it's easier for them to enter into kind of playing with their children. Go play with your children. Instead of just watching, if they're coloring, you start coloring. That's one thing that, you know, it's kind of a fad now is people are coloring. That's good. But if your kids are playing with clay, put your hands in some clay. Actually enter into that play. And there's all sorts of ways that we can begin to take little baby steps into this.
And if you don't, go find kids.
Yes.
Or be your grandkids.
Yes. Or find some other friends and say, come on over, we're going to make a collage, and then start tearing up paper and with some glue and some draw some pictures. I mean, this is not a performance test. This is just a way of being.
And my mind now is when we used to have family, we would start, and the next person came. So, you know, sometimes we went to go and the next person had to add on. It was so ridiculous. But we were laughing, and it was just so much more fun than talking about what was going on.
Yes. Yes. That's wonderful. And it's wonderful that you guys were free enough to laugh and not have that criticism come up in you. Because I think that's, so many of us have this critical voice that comes up when we start to, create something, or, maybe somebody does a little painting and they go, oh, this doesn't look very good. Who says? How come you get to be the judge?
Because there are now, and parents take pictures and say, look, these could be like Van Gogh, I don't know, Van Gogh, but some of the modern artists.
Yes. Yes. I actually wrote a book. I hurt my right hand, and so I had to learn to write with my left hand. And I actually wrote a book with my left hand, and it's called I'm Tired of Trying to Paint Like Sally Waterman. And that's a made-up name, but she was the one who in my class was always said, oh, she's a great artist. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s when I was writing with my left hand that this little poem started to come out, and I realized I want to paint like me. I don't want to paint like anybody else. And that was a great aha moment of not listening to that inner critic.
Yeah, so we want people to be able to do this before 40.
Yes.
To know creativity, from the moment you're born, to foster and support yourself and everyone else.
That's right. And it will look different in each person. Yeah. And that's just what makes it so wonderful.
Well,
this is great. Thank you so much for letting me come and talk. And I'm looking forward to talking about some of the different forms of creativity. Like I'm going to talk about art as an outer expression of our inner being. And I'm going to be talking about music. And I'm going to be talking about storytelling and writing and some of those type of things. But I'll be weaving them in with other types of creativity too.
And every bit of it, you're gonna inspire us creativity to the next level for each of us.
I was recently in Michigan, and there was this woman who had a bakery, and she made the most incredible cakes. And I said, they were just beautiful. And I asked her if I could take photos of her cakes because they were just magnificent. And I think she kind of got it, but I just said, they were creative masterpieces is what they were. And oftentimes I think that we don't recognize all that is within us. I don't know if she recognizes what an incredible artist she is or not in her baking, but I did.
Well, we can give her a plug now.
I'll have to go back and find her card, but it was a wonderful experience. Right. Really wonderful. Right. So thank you, Jackie. This is really fun. I love it. I have a great passion about creativity, as you can tell.
Well, I think that everybody's in for a treat. Survive all the information that you have. I'm so thankful.
Thank you.
I love you that you came here. And I hope we figure out the thing for next week.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.